Ralph here from NoizeBusters. Now here I want to show some basics of Bitwig Studio. It's kind of a new series package for all of you which are not familiar with the program and want to dive in a bit more. So when you open Bitwig first time, it will open like this. You can open a new project. Here you have the different settings. Here are packages where you can download samples and presets from the Bitwig library. You have a help menu as well with a lot of tutorials here for checking out. Then you have the documentation, the manual in different languages, and we go through the settings a bit later, what it all means. And so if I open a new project, it looks like this. So what we have here is different tracks. So we have MIDI tracks and audio tracks, and there's a third track type which is called a hyper track, which I explain a bit later. And then on the top of the window you have different menus, like file for opening projects and save them, export audio, export MIDI. Then you have sorry, and you have a play menu with settings for different types of recordings, automation settings. And then this window is the transport, where you see the BPM, the type of time signature you are using, plus that are the bars and the time where you are in the track. And then you have a metronome here. This one is for restore automation control, and this one is the transport loop for looping a section. And then on the right side you have different options as well. You can add instruments and tracks and effect tracks, group tracks. Then you have an edit menu where you have the functions for cutting and pasting stuff, and then you have event controls. And it always depends what you have selected. You see, if I have a clip here, I have a different menu here where I can say which control I want to see on that bar. Then you just switch it on or off. That's quite useful, so you are not all overloaded with a lot of controls, and you don't know where to put them or how to use that. So you can use your favorite ones. And then on the left side you see this thing here. That's the inspector. Oops, that's the inspector, and this shows you different settings as well. And also, if you click a clip, you have different settings you can change. You can change the color as well. That's the track color from the track itself. And here down there you have the inputs and outputs of your sound card and the level meters and stuff. So, and this is the range window. So the range window is time based from left to right. So if I press play, it goes in that direction, as usual with other doors as well. And then also down here you have a window which is the edit or device pane. Like if I'm on an instrument and double click, it opens the browsers, and then I can choose an instrument for playing, and if I want to edit the notes from that clip, I just double click and then it opens the editor where I can type in notes and other stuff as well. And the same is with audio. So if I have an audio clip somewhere, let's take something in, then you see it's here and I can edit something inside that clip. So, and then on the right side you have a browser which you can turn on and off, and also that browser is always appearing if you double click in a blank area. That's the same browser, just a different view. And in this browser you have different tabs where you can load up devices, your plugins, presets and samples, and you can set up your music locations where you have your own samples or tracks, and make your own orders inside the browser. What I've done here, for example, is I have some folders which includes my favorite plugins I used. Same with the presets. And what else we have here? Right down at the bottom you have the browser pane. Then here you have the project info from your song. Here it shows all the files which are included in the project, and here what kind of plugins you use, and if there are any missing, then if you collect a lot of samples during the session and then you want to collect and save it into one folder, you can do this here, collect and save, or collect and save through the menu here. And then this are the studio in-out settings, which you also can do in here with the settings, which I come to in a minute. And then we have these mappings where you can MIDI map different controls in Bitwig and set up it how you like with your controller. And then as well on the left side you have some buttons as well. Here you see, like, that's the editor panel, that's the automation where you can choose different automations to draw in, which you also can do on the tracks, of course. It's just like in a more detailed version here. Then you have the device panel where you load up all the instruments and effects, and then you have a mixer here as well, a mini mixer. And also what you can do, you have two different views in Bitwig, or three I should say. So one is here, the arrangement view, and the other one is this one, which is the clip view, or clip launcher, sorry. And this is not time-based, this view, so this one is really useful for sketching ideas, trying stuff out, make variations out of your recordings, and then use them in the arrangement view. And the really cool feature about Bitwig is that you can have that next to your arrangement, and that's very useful and handy. It's less confusing to, if I have to go here and then grab it, go back to that view and then drag and drop it, it's much more easy to do it that way, and a lot of fun as well, because you can make your arrangement and then say, let's say, oh, I want to jam on top on one of the section, then go there trying some different stuff out, and then record them in the clip launcher, and then if you're happy with it, you just drag and drop it into the arrangement. And that's basically it for that view. And I'll go back to the clip launcher here, where it's also a mixer view, so I can get rid of the clips. For example, I can see the instruments, what I load up and what I have loaded in the project. Then you have the volume here, in and outs, the send effect returns as well. And then very nice level meters here. And also what's different to other DAWs, if you're using the clips, you have, let's take some notes inside, and I have the opportunity here to expand the clip view, so you actually see what's inside the clip. It's just very useful for a live situation. And then you have this scene buttons. The scene buttons launch the whole, you see the whole horizontal line. If I press this one, both of the tracks start to play. So you can jam around in that session, do your live sets, whatever you're up for. And have the same possibilities with the inspector here on the left side. The browser is if needed, and you have all the controls which you have here as well. If I do tracks, I like that view, that I have both. I start in the clip launcher normally, and then drag stuff out into the arrangement. And then we should check the settings as well for a start. So here you have different demo projects you can download and instantly use. And then here are all your projects, the recent one and the other ones are saved in the, which are saved in the Bitwig documents folder. And then here you can make your own templates for different setups you need for your tracks. Then in the settings pane you have different settings for the screen, for if you use one screen or two screens or even a triple display setting. And you can change the contrast, view mode of the meters, and the mouse reactions and behaviors. And then you have here more behaviors. What happens if when you open Bitwig, what it should do if it comes to that board, like dashboard, if it opens up a new project, or if it should load the last project which I was working on. And you can also start with a template. You can choose it here, also quite nice. And then you can say what happens if you import samples into the project, what Bitwig should do, if it should warp the audio or not, and in which way you want to have the warping happening. Then also if you drag something in or record something, Bitwig makes sure that you don't have clicks and the start and the ending of the clip, which you have here like a default fade length setting, and other stuff as well, which you can check out. That's more self-explaining. Then you have the audio tab where you select your input and output of your sound card, the sample rate, and the latency setting, buffer settings. And down here you have the possibility to name all your inputs and outputs the way you want, which is quite nice. And then in the recording, it's like how it's reacting on different controls for the recording, if you want to have a pre-roll or record quantization. Then we have the controller page, which here it sets up all your MIDI controllers you use in Bitwig, and you can do different settings if it's a more complicated or more expanded MIDI controller like the push. And then here you have the synchronization settings, which means you can use all your MIDI outputs to synchronize your hardware and send MIDI clocks out of it, and you can shift the clock as well, which is quite cool because then you get a much more tighter setup with all your hardware's instruments. And then you can also clock Bitwig to an external MIDI clock, and you have the possibility to Ableton link the whole thing as well. Quite nice and easy to use, and very stable. Then we have the locations. The locations are: where are your projects stored, where do you have your studio content like MIDI files and samples set up, and what you prefer to use, 30-bit plugins or 64 plugins and stuff like this. It's all in that page. And then in the plugins page you have this the list of all your plugins, plus you can decide what happens in Bitwig when they are used. So what's nice in Bitwig, that everything runs in its own process. That means if I go on individually, then every plugin has its own process running. So if there's a problem where it crashes, it just closes down the window and you can still work on the project. There's no crashing of the whole program, and you can decide how much or how how Bitwig should apply that technique with the own process. If you want, you can say it should take all the same manufacturers, like FabFilter for example, and run this one in an own process, or I want to have every plugin running in an own process. It depends a bit on your power of the computer. For live situations, it really depends on your laptop, but then it's a bit better to say, okay, I go by manufacturer, or that the CPU is not as much, or the memory is not used so much. So there are specific settings you can do with your plugins, and then you have a shortcut menu where you can design your own shortcuts and then save different settings. And another one here, oh no, we had that already with the samples and presets, that you can download them here. And then you have the help menu. I think that was also covered before. So that's a really basic walkthrough now. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I will continue the next one with recording MIDI and audio into the project. Thanks, bye.